everyone knows what Pokemon is. You throw a ball at some furry bait, then boom, you make it fight for your entertainment. And if you watch my content, you already know what Persona is. A game where an edgy teenager defeats God. Again and again. Except for in Persona 2. I can't say who you fight in Persona 2 if I want to stay monetized, but anyway. But what if these two series got combined into one? Introducing Pokemon Infinite Fusion, a game that will allow me to do just that. So now let me ask the question, can you beat Pokemon Infinite Fusion with only Persona Fusions? And the rules are quite simple. Rule 1, I can only use Persona Fusions. If I didn't, that would kinda go against the main point of the video. Rule 2, I can add new Pokemon to the team after beating a gym. All the way up until I have a full party of 6. Then I can swap them however I like. And finally, Rule 3. I cannot use held items or items in battle, just to make things a bit harder. And now, with that all being said, let's start where all good Pokemon games start, by choosing a starter Pokemon. And my options are, this little buddy, that little buddy, or a Pokemon I need for a future fusion. So I go with the Infernape fusion. And Adachi goes for the little turtle guy. And even though one of my rules is to beat this game with only Persona fusions, I can't really do that right now, but once I beat Adachi, I can find my first fusion. Also, while I was checking on my fusion list, a Pidgey landed on my head, so yeah, they'll stay with me for a while. So my tactic for finding a specific Pokemon for a fusion was to look on Route 1, Route 2, and Viridian Forest. And if I couldn't find one, I would simply talk to the randomizer guy in the Poke Center, so I can reshuffle the Pokemon. Then, after a bit of searching, I finally find both a Glaceon fusion and a Bayonet fusion. I also got a free love disc for some reason, I don't know. But now with both of these Pokemon, I can make everyone's favorite snow buddy, Jack Frost. Also, the artist for all the Persona sprites in this video will be found in the description below, next to the subscribe button that you should definitely hit. Now with that shameless plug out of the way, I go face off against the first gym leader, Brock. Now Brock has two Pokemon, the first being a psychic type that I take out with a single knockout. Pretty easy stuff, right? The next, however, was more easy. Like, what can I even say about this? Come on, Brock, you're embarrassing me in front of my 5 viewers. Anyway, after I received the Boulder badge, I quickly caught some new Mons, like this freaky Gengar fusion and this Aegislash fusion. It wasn't freaky though. Then I came across Team Rocket tormenting the local wildlife for profit, just like influencers in real life. So now I have to battle this science guy. And I'll admit, it would have been a pretty hard fight if it wasn't for one small thing. His Pokemon's ghost typing. So after the battle, I scare Team Rocket away by threatening to release a Twitlonger about them. Now normally, I would go and do the second gym, but I need a second fusion before I can. So I decided to catch a few more Mons like this Weavile fusion and this Roserade fusion. None of them as freaky as our Freak King Gengar though. Well, scratch that because the internet made Roserade freaky, or maybe it was always freaky, I don't know. But what I do know is that when I fuse Freakguard with Roserade, I get my newest team member, Milady. So before I tackle Misty, I decide to grind a bit against my rival Adachi. Adachi had nothing. What can I say? Like, he evolved his turtle at least, but what the hell can I say about this goober? And Misty wasn't any better. She had 2 Pokemon, and both got taken out by my new grass type. But then again, this is a randomizer, so it's either going to be really, really easy, or really, really hard. After Misty, I joined Team Rocket. Yeah, that's a new feature in this game, but I had to get rid of Pidgey to do so rip the goat. But I did find these really cool glasses after, so I wasn't that sad about it. And after helping Bill out his fursuit, shout out to my one furry fan, you know who you are, I got the SS Anne ticket. But before I get on the Titanic, I decide to hunt for my new teammate, and I started off by catching this Ferrothorn fusion, and I followed that up with the Herculean task of catching this Necrozma. But it wasn't until I caught the Gunnar Pokemon themselves, Gardevoir, that I could make a new fusion. That being, wait, that's the wrong one. Wait, here we go, we have Orpheus, the female version, if you couldn't tell because Atlas refuses to acknowledge her, but I digress. Now I can fight Adachi again, and you know how it goes, second verse same as the first. Then I rub down an old man for the cut HM. So now I can face Surge, and for Surge, I actually had a strategy. Very impressive, I know. On his first Pokemon, I set up a bunch of double teams to raise my evasion. Then when I got close to being KO'd, I would use use Draining Kiss to heal back up. But this whole plan was for nothing, because his next two Pokemon were both grass types, so Orpheus took them out in like 1 or 2 hits, but at least after the battle, I found the Darkrai. So we can make everyone's favorite 19th century thief, wait, that's the wrong fusion again. Here we are, Arsène. Now with him, I completely wipe Adachi's team. Like, it wasn't even close. Like, Adachi, little bro, how do you lose against a teenager? Twice. Then after that embarrassment, me and Adachi watch as Team Rocket harass the elderly, just like influencers in real life. So in order for me to save the old timer, I need to go beat up the leader of the Mafia, Giovanni. And you know, maybe I shouldn't act surprised that my legendary Pokemon fusion completely wipes most teams, but when you send out something like this, what can I even say anymore? Now before the old dude gets saved, I decide to take on Erica's gym, and these Pokemon mixed with Calm Mind equals a sweep. At least she throws a curveball with her final Pokemon being a fighting type, but I also had Psychic, so now I could save the old dude, but because I still have an itch from my last video, I decided to gamble, and just when I was about to stop, I got triple sevens, baby. It just goes to show that 99% of quitters are just one win away. Now with my winnings, I bought Flamethrower, Thunderbolt, and Ice Beam. And finally, before I save the old guy, I catch an Aggron fusion and a Qaffeine fusion. Now with both of them, I can probably make one of my favorite personas, Thanatos. Very fitting for the graveyard. But when I get to the top floor, the old guy's just chilling there. Because he likes it? Well, I mean, he'll probably live here soon enough, so I do hope he likes it. Anyway, next thing on my list is Koga. And if I had a nickel for every gym leader I beat with a single Pokemon, I would have 25 cents. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened 5 times already. Now, I unlocked the best place to farm Pokemon for fusing, the Safari Zone, and off the bat, I get 2 Pokemon, a Zoroark fusion and another Weavile fusion. But the most important fusion I get is the Staryu fusion, because now with it, I can fuse one of my Weaviles to get this little baby Decarabia, and with a Water Stone, the little baby turns into a big buddy. Now with a full team of 6, I can freely catch and fuse Pokemon as I like. For example, I went back to the Safari Zone to catch this Giratina fusion, but I also stumbled across this Ferret fusion and caught it, so I used my other Weavile to make Yusuke. I also found an unknown fusion, and with the Ferrothorn I've had for a while, I make Ameno Sagiri. A bit of an odd Persona character to choose, but it's my only Persona 4 rep, so I had to add it to the team. That was until I found the Bisharp fusion, and now with the Aegislash I caught from the beginning of the game, I can fuse Narukami's Persona, Izanagi. Editor's note, I also found the Magnezone fusion around this time for one of the last fusions I did in this game. Now, onto the most difficult part of this game, Silph Co. It's at this point where the difficulty ramps up, and if you need evidence to prove it, well, let's just say I played these games before.
I said I played these games before!
Adachi's first Pokemon caused a little bit of an issue by spamming Double Edge, but it's nothing a Ghost type can't fix. His next Pokemon was a Ghost type, so Arsène, you know what to do. And you would think that his next Pokemon will be pretty easy to knock out because it's quad weak to ground, but I don't have any ground moves, so Orpheus goes down. But Izanagi comes out to save the day. Next was an actual Cocoon, so I sent out Decarabia for his debut appearance, but anyway, Izanagi's great, isn't he? And finally, he sent out his Turtle Land. Well, okay. Now me and Adachi can team up to face Giovanni. And this really wasn't a team battle, it was more of an attempt to sabotage me. Like, every single turn Giovanni targets my Pokemon and knocks them out. But Adachi didn't help either. Like, I'm over here trying to set up double team so I don't get hit. And this asshat uses Haze for no reason. And I'll let you guess what happened next turn. Thankfully, I had Milady left for his final Pokemon to Flare Blitz on, so it would KO itself. Because last time I left Adachi to deal the final blow, it didn't go so good. But now I can get the TM for Psychic, so everything's fine now. And you would think that Sabrina would be harder than Giovanni, but with 2 Dark-type Pokemon, it was another easy gym. But at least this time I had to use 2 different Pokemon, so hey, that's a plus. After this, I decided to catch a new Pokemon. That being this Beedrill fusion. Get it? Beedrill. It's fun. Anyway, now I can fuse it with my Giratina and get Beelzebub Beelzebub. Now I can go face Blaine. And here's where things get interesting. Beelzebub can learn Toxic, a move that's absolutely broken in this game. So the first Pokemon is taken out by that. Next was this little buddy, so I just splashed some water on him and called it a day. Next was, well, it did take out my Decarabia, but other than that, it didn't put up much of a fight. Then finally came out, look, I'm trying my best to make these fights seem interesting, but most Pokemon fights just boil down to use your strongest move and win, so that's kind of what I did. Now I can fight Giovanni, but not as Gym Leader Giovanni, but as the Giovanni that has all 3 legendary birds. Now this fight is difficult for a couple different reasons. The first reason is that you have 3 different health bars to deal with, and the second reason is the fact that it attacks 3 different times, so most of my Pokemon go down in one turn. And this fight showed me that I was way underleveled, so when I came back at a higher level, I also brought along a new strategy. I would use Arsène and Power Gem turn 1 for a clean knockout on Moltres. Then after the 2 birds attacked, I would use Photon Geyser on Zapdos before Arsène could go down. Then Beelzebub would come out to poison both birds before fainting. Finally, Orpheus's job was to finish off both birds with Flamethrower for the win. And to celebrate my victory, I caught 2 Gallades to fuse for my final fusions for this run. First up was Magnezone and Gallade to create the male version of Orpheus. There's no reason for me to use him over the female one, so now onto the final fusion of Zoroark and Gallade to get Mr. Joker Persona 5 himself. Wow, he looks just like me. Anyway, now we can face Gym Leader Giovanni, and he takes a massive downgrade. His first Pokemon is nothing but XP fodder for Joker Persona 5. Then he had the gall to send this out. It fell to a single Psychic from Arsène. I benched Decarabia for Joker, so Thanatos is my new Surfer, and he does a pretty good job at it. And then his last Pokemon goes down thanks to Izanagi, and I'm realizing now that I probably should have made this a Nuzlocke. But anyway, I get the TM Earthquake and give it to Joker. Then I fight my rival Adachi one more time before taking on the League, and my ass is not talking about this fight. Like, what is this? Like, come on man, you're embarrassing me in front of my 2 viewers because the other 3 already clicked off the video. Anyway, it's time for the Elite 4, starting with Lorelei. I start off with Izanagi and was going to set up on her weakest Pokemon, but then it knew Flamethrower, so I opted for plan 2. I set up 6 double teams and 6 Calm Minds with Orpheus, because the little guy couldn't do anything to stop me. So from there, I completely swept her team with Flamethrower. Like, there's not that much to say about this one, so on to Bruno. Bruno was a bit of a step up, but not by much, as his first 3 Pokemon went down to Psychic moves. And even though his Gallade fusion took down Arsène, Beelzebub was tanky enough to take hits to finish it off. Then Joker finished off his Lamp for another victory. What can I say? Everything's going perfectly. Nothing bad can happen now, can it? No, it can't, because next was Agatha. And who would have thought it, but having a Dark-type Pokemon fight a Ghost-type trainer made this fight so one-sided. But that's how it went down, so next was Lance. And his first one, yeah, no, that thing couldn't have done anything. But I do get unlucky with his next one, being that it's a fire type. But I have Joker Persona 5, so it's all good. Next up was another Pokemon weak to ground moves, but this time I gave the spotlight to Beelzebub. Then came out one of the scariest Pokemon of this run, because it managed to take out both Beelzebub and Arsène. But Izanagi outsped like always and took it out. Then my guy had the balls to send out a goddamn Zubat afterwards. Like, okay buddy, calm down, I see you. Anyway, the only thing standing in my way from beating this challenge is Adachi, and seeing his performance throughout the game so far, I knew it couldn't be that hard to beat him, right? Well, his first Pokemon couldn't do anything because he kept wasting heals on it, and then when he ran out, I just finished it off. His next fusion did have a super effective move on it, but it never landed, so it went down pretty easy. Also, his third Pokemon never really stood a chance either. His iconic Turtle now only had the move Destiny Bond and Memento, but neither of those moves did anything. So for his 5th Pokemon fusion, I used Beelzebub to poison it, and I used Joker Persona 5 to fully take it out. Finally, Thanatos Ice Beamed the Hot Furry Dragon. I mean the very normal looking Pokemon. Anyway, I won, so can you beat Pokemon Infinite Fusion with only Persona fusions? Yeah, as long as you don't count the first fight. I know this challenge wasn't very challenging, but it was fun to revisit Pokemon again, especially this game. I have a lot of cool ideas planned for this year, so if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing subscribing. And maybe you can also like the video too. Anyway, I'm gonna stop yapping for now, but remember to have a fantastic day.